And we are back. Hello, boys and girls. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're keeping in good health. I know there's been quite a delay since the last video, and I apologize for that. But I will be posting more regularly from here on. This year, let's learn and grow in knowledge together. If you're watching for the first time, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us. As always, I'm Dr. Ron, your friendly neighborhood zoologist. Welcome to another episode of Biology with Dr. Ronald Nathaniel. Let's get right into it. We are starting a small series from today, and today we will be looking into the history of cells. Welcome, boys and girls, to the world of cells. What is a cell? When we discussed about what is life, we touched on this topic a bit. We learned a simple definition that the cell is the basic functional and structural unit of all forms of life. All living things are made up of cells. That's what differentiates us from non-living things. The cell is responsible for all life processes. Like we discussed in our previous video, all organisms are made up of cells. Some are made up of single cells and we call them unicellular organisms, and some organisms are made up of many cells functioning together and we call them multicellular organisms. Cells are the building blocks of all living beings. They provide structure to the body and convert the nutrients taken from food into energy. Before we study all the intricacies of cells, we must first look at who discovered the cell. In the year 1665, an English scientist was looking into his microscope. Who was this, you may ask? It was Robert Hooke, who discovered the cell in 1665, which is more than 3.5 centuries ago. What was he looking at? He was observing cork through his compound microscope when he noticed minuscule structures that reminded him of small rooms. He illustrated these tiny box-like structures as cells. He discovered plant cells. He coined the word cell because when he observed it, it reminded him of small rooms. However, his compound microscope had limited magnification and hence he could not see any details in the structure. Owing to this limitation, Hooke concluded these were non-living entities. Later, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, a Dutch scientist, observed cells under another microscope with high magnification. This time, he noted that cells exhibit a form of movement called as motility. As a result, Leeuwenhoek concluded that these microscopic entities were alive. Eventually, after a host of other observations, these entities were named as animalcules. The word animalcule is derived from two Latin words meaning little animal and culum, together forming the word animalcule. It is an archaic term for microscopic organisms that include bacteria, protozoans, and very small animals. The word was invented by 17th century Dutch scientist Anton van Leeuwenhoek to refer to microorganisms that he observed in rainwater. Later, in 1833, Robert Brown, a Scottish botanist, provided the very first insights into cell structure. He was able to describe the nucleus in the cells of orchids. Now that we've had a brief study on the history of cells and their discovery, we have to ask this question: what exactly is a cell? A cell is a mass of cytoplasm that is bound externally by a cell membrane. Cells are usually microscopic in size. They are the smallest structural units of living matter that compose all living things. Most cells have one or more nuclei and other organelles that carry out a variety of tasks. Some single cells are complete organisms by themselves, such as bacterium or yeast, whereas others are specialized building blocks of multicellular organisms such as plants and animals. All cells have three things in common: a cell membrane, cytoplasm, which is a jelly-like fluid, and DNA, which is the genetic material. In our previous video called What is Life, we looked at the characteristics that define life. In this video, let us look at the characteristics that define cells. Cells are able to provide structure and support to the body of an organism. The interior of a cell is organized into different individual organelles surrounded by a separate membrane. The nucleus, which is a major organelle within the cell, holds all the genetic material necessary for reproduction and cell growth. Every cell has one nucleus and membrane-bound organelles in the cytoplasm. Mitochondria, a double membrane-bound organelle, is mainly responsible for the energy transactions vital for the survival of the cell. Lysosomes digest unwanted materials within the cell. Endoplasmic reticulum play a significant role in the internal organization of the cell. They do this by synthesizing selective molecules, processing, directing and sorting them to their appropriate locations. This brings us to the last topic in this video, which is what is cell theory. Cell theory states that the cell is the fundamental and structural and functional unit of all living matter. In 1839, German physiologist Theodor Schwann and German botanist Matthias Schleiden promulgated that cells are the elementary particles of organisms in both plants and animals, and recognized that some organisms are unicellular and others are multicellular. This theory marked a great conceptual advance in biology and resulted in renewed attention to the living process that go on in cells. This video was just a brief introduction into the history of cells. Stay tuned for upcoming videos that delve deeper into this topic. That's it for today, boys and girls. See you all in the next video.